we'll get started this week on this great first week after break. Hopefully you've had a chance to look at the email I sent so you have an idea of what we're doing this week. You have a test on Thursday. It's called the Algebra Readiness Test. It will not go down as a grade in my grade book, in RenWeb Now. We use it to determine if you're ready for Algebra 1 next year or if beginning algebra is a better track for you next year. So don't feel a lot of pressure about it. Just do your best. The grade matters that you get on the test as far as your placement, also what your parents prefer, and my recommendation. So it's a combination of things where you land next year and what you're ready for. The thing to remember is if you do take Algebra 1 next year as an 8th grader, you have to get a 90 in order for it to count for high school credit. Now, if you don't get a 90, you just take it again freshman year. It doesn't really matter that way. But in order to get the high school credit, you have to get a 90 next year. So, what we're going to do this week is just try and prepare you a little bit, review some things you probably haven't thought of in weeks, and just try and get you ready for that. So, before we left for spring break, you did a cumulative review from the book. I want you to get that. If you don't have that, pause this and get it, because we're going to go through the answers for it so you can grade your work and see what you're good at and what you need some help with. I'm going to remind you now, probably at the end also, I have Google Meet, so you can come see me. I've changed sometimes a little bit so that my time from 1 to 2 is just going to be really for my pre-algebra, beginning algebra students. So you can come see me from 1 to 2, then I'll have time for my Algebra 1 kids after that. So if you have questions or you want something explained and I don't cover something in this session, come to the Google Meet. Again, 1 to 2, I sent you that link. It's in RenWeb. I believe it's also on Google Classroom, but I'm not sure. It's the same link that I've used. So if I don't get your questions covered today, come ask me on there. I'll be happy to walk through things with you. So the first thing we're going to do is discuss the even answers from page 578 and 579. That was your assignment before break. And you had the evens. So I'm going to go through them. If I go fast, rewind, go back, pause the video, do what you got to do to make sure you're on track, okay? So we'll start again. This is page 578 and 579 that you had, just the evens. So, number 2, 16. Number 4, negative 21. Number 6, negative 3. Number 8, 25. Number 10, 2 times 5 times 7. 12, 2 cubed times 23. 2 times 2 times 2 is okay, but it's better, since you're smart pre-algebra students now, to write that with an exponent. So 2 cubed times 23. 14 is 308. 16 is 0.5%. Okay, 0.5%. If you put 1/2%, same. 18. It says classify, so 18 is a rectangle. 20, negative 115. 22, negative 45. 24, x is less than or equal to 6. 26, plus or minus 14. Square roots, you need both options, plus or minus 14. 28, plus or minus 8. 30, find the area, 91 centimeters squared. 32, 378 meters squared. 34, 78.5 feet squared. 36 was the volume, 942.5 meters cubed. Okay? Then for 38, you were to make a histogram. So I don't know if you remember histograms, and those involve frequency tables. So you make a chart and you look at those numbers. Your numbers there, 67, 76, okay, up to 78. And you divide them into intervals. And then you make a frequency table. How many fall into this first interval? So maybe your first interval might have been like 50 to, they do here 50 to 59. then 60 to 69, and then 70 to 79. So they do 3 intervals. And then you see how many of those scores, numbers, fall into that interval. So in the first interval, how many fall in between 50 and 69, 50 and 59, excuse me, just 1. How many fall in between 60 and 69? 7. And then 70 to 79, there are 6. So a histogram, okay, looks like a bar graph. The columns, the bars touch one another. There's no space in between, and it's by intervals. Now, could you have chosen something different? Yes. Okay. When you make those kind of data analysis charts, there's some, can't think of the word, but there's an ability to have, you could have chosen like 50 to 55, 56 to 60, 60, you know, on a short, smaller interval. They just chose it by 9s, 50 to 59, 60 to 69, okay? They went in those intervals. That's a good way to do it. But if you thought that through, made sure you did like a tally chart, how many are in that interval, that's what a histogram involves. 40, 2 answers for 40, 7 over 44 and 3 over 14. Which food has the greater fraction? Soup. Okay. 42 is $525. 44 is 17 inches. And 46 was the cylinder. And it says, which container uses less? That's a cylinder. How much less? About 27.9 square centimeters less. Okay. So, as far as what you might have missed there, on that first section, 1 through 8, you were plugging in numbers. I would say a common mistake would be if you didn't pay attention to your signs, or for like number 8, you had to do b squared, which is negative 15. So negative 15 squared over a squared, which is over 9. So you have to pay attention to that. And for the prime factorization for 10 and 12, we kind of covered that. Percent proportions, in case you don't remember. All right, if you look at, let's look at number 13, where it says what number is 500% of 16. Okay, remember how we did percent proportions, right? We talked about is over of, has to be the part percent over 100, okay? And then you cross multiply, all right, and divide. So it says here what number is 500%, okay? Is 500%, so your 500 goes here, over 100, of 16, okay? So your x is here, right? So in this case, you would cross multiply and divide, and that's how you get x equals 80. Now, remember when you have percents, you can also multiply. So you have to remember, when you say 500%, you would write that just as 5, right? Because 100% is 1. So 500% of 16, of, we say, means multiply. So you can get the same answer multiplying, and you get 80 there as well. Okay, I hope you can see that. I don't know if the glare is bad on this or not. Maybe I made it worse. Anyway, just remember how to set up those percent proportions, right? And then you cross multiply and divide. So for 14, if you miss that, maybe you put the numbers in the wrong place. 14, 200.2 is 65% of what number? So in that case, of should have been down here, 200.2 up there, and the 65% on top. Okay, we've just done a lot with area and volume, so hopefully those portions were easier. Solving the inequality, 20 through 28, remember, first you get the letter by itself. So for 20, you have to subtract 13 before you multiply by 5. For 28, you have to add 28. okay, before you take the square root of a number. Okay, let's see. Page 579 for number 42, interest. You should pay attention to the interest formula on that. And if you don't remember, go back and review that. You should know that. Okay, so again, if you miss something, you're not sure how, maybe by me going through the answers that helped you figure out, okay, I know what I missed, I should have done it this way, I had the number in the wrong place, whatever it was. You should go back and look at those. Again, if your question didn't get answered, come to Google Meet at 1 o'clock, and I will be happy to answer anything for you particularly. Now, what today looks like, after you finish watching this video, I gave you a few problems to do. Those problems come from page 398 and 399, and I'm going to talk about that in a minute. Your assignments on Tuesday and Wednesday, so your test is Thursday. It has to be Thursday at 1 o'clock. And so if that's a problem for any of your parents or grandparent or whoever might proctor you, they need to be in the room with you when you take that test. On that test and for your homework this week, you shouldn't be using calculators, anything else. Don't Google it, nothing. When you take your test on Thursday, you'll only have a scratch paper and pencil, okay? And it's timed, so you're just going to have to work as quickly as you possibly can. It is multiple choice. You'll be filling in an answer sheet. But in order to prepare you for that, on Tuesday and Wednesday, when you look in Google Classroom, there are two, I might have called them quizzes or assignments. You don't have to worry, they're not going to count necessarily as quiz grades. I haven't decided what value they'll be yet. But it's like practice. It covers a lot of material. So you go on Google Classroom, you'll take those two quizzes each day. Now, the ones you struggle with, you can come ask me questions about it on Google Meet. Those you might want to go back and look. Can I find that concept in the book? I totally don't remember how to do what they were asking me to do, that kind of thing, okay? So you can write that down and then come back and look at it. Maybe you take a screenshot when you know you didn't know what it was, and you can look it up later. Then after you take those two quizzes, I've given you some problems to review from your book. So if you look at page 398 and 399, each section tells you where in your book it comes from. So I did use your text so that you can go back and look for explanation. Go back and look at those example problems in that section. Okay? For today's assignment, so that'll be Tuesday and Wednesday. You'll do the same thing both days. You'll take the little activity assignments in Google Classroom. There are two. And then you'll work on review problems. Your homework should take you 30 to 45 minutes. It wouldn't hurt you to spend 45 minutes Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday brushing up on your math skills, okay? So Tuesday and Wednesday, you'll take those two quizzes in Google Classroom. Then you'll just work on review problems, okay? And those are assigned in there. Today, once you finish the video, you will also do some work from this cumulative review. Again, this is page 399 in your book. Here's one that sometimes we kind of forget what we do and which way we go. So when you're looking at 49, let's see, what did I give you for an assignment? 49 through 54. Okay, write the decimal or fraction as a percent. All right, so you need to remind yourself, go back and look when it is a decimal, okay, and I'm changing it to a percent. If I have a decimal, I'm moving that decimal place 2 places. So if it says, what percent is 0.17, you need to remember 2 places, it's 17%. Okay, what do you do if it's a fraction? What if it says 2/10? How do I write that? Okay, most of you probably would go, oh, I want to change that to 100, so it's percent. I have to change that. If I multiply that by 10, I multiply that by 10, and then I recognize that that is 20%. Okay, so review those strategies. Finding probability, how many out of a total That might be something that's on page 381. You can go back and look. Some of you might be really comfortable with that. The other portion I gave you is on page 399, 63 to 65. Okay? And this is what I want to touch on a little bit. You're using that circle graph on page 399. And it says, it's important to read the directions on these. It says it shows the result of a survey of 300 students who were asked what they would choose for a final project, okay? So for 300 students, all right, then they show you some chose a visual, some chose writing a paper, taking a test, oral report. What you have to pay attention to is that number is out of 300. So then when they say, what percent of students chose an oral report? All right, I have 36 students out of 300. How do you find what percent that is? Okay, I'm going to let you try it. Don't worry, I will give the answers to you. You will get that. But think through that. Make sure you're reading all the directions. Okay, it may be where they, it says which final project was chosen by 21%. Again, the percent proportion that we talked about, it's not up there anymore, that we talked about will be helpful to you to remember. Okay? So, again, work through this review, do your best, work hard. Your test will be Thursday, and then, hey, Friday off, you can sleep in. Hope you're doing great. Again, feel free to come ask me questions. Google Meet 1 to 2 only on Monday and Wednesday. Have a wonderful day.